first of all, like, you want to introduce yourself, to everybody in the chat, and what you're currently up to, besides the stuff that you see on the screen, and maybe you can ask like a fun question, like what was the first fighting game you took seriously?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you put my tag up on the stream, Kattermari, but probably you'll find me on that for Twitter, whatever it might be. But I'm pretty sure at this point most people just call me Zack.
Yep, there you go. I put it up on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everyone can just call me Zack. Way easier. I'd say between primarily between East Coast Throwdown being a pretty big labor of love for the past few years, and joining up on that side, and really taking the direction that it's going in now. I think it doesn't, that bullet at the top as the senior director of esports for Intersports kind of scratches the surface, which is more so, I guess the biggest feat is more so managing with the rest of our partners, of course, the entirety of the global pro competition for Mortal Kombat 11 this year for Season 1. Or rather, 2019, it just technically finished in March, which is a whole other story I'm sure we will get into down this line.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it's interesting because not being the biggest NRS player myself, it's never been my background or history. I've really taken a huge deep dive, just, given circumstance and just overall understanding of the NRS community and knowing so many people in there. And just, I honestly have fallen pretty in love with the community they've built over there on the NRS side, from anywhere from the publisher level, dev level, down to all the great people that make it happen. It also drastically helps that game probably has the only modern release that has a pretty playable netcode.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, the netcode of that game is it's actually good, and it's just really cool that you got tapped for that, and that's amazing. We'll get into that a little bit too. So, fun question again. What was your first fighter that you took seriously?
Right. Okay, let me. I don't want to put it that way, right? Not take seriously, but rather the first fighting game that made me realize that it's not just mashing buttons, and there's like an ebb and a flow of this concept of kind of spacing and pressure and advantage, was actually CVS2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I got to learn that from just happening to go to the same high school as, I'm sure a lot of people know who Min is from Team Spooky.
Okay.
So he eventually, I just kind of asked him questions. We'd go to the same arcade when we were in high school, and I would see him play. I'm like,
shout out to Min.
This actually looks cool. Let me try to play this a little bit, and just ask him some questions, and sat down. He taught me few things, and it started to make sense slowly over time. And then I went off to college, and I was down in Philly, and I kind of didn't keep up with it at all. I knew that there was University Pinball at the time, which people were still playing. Some CVS2, some Third Strike, mostly Marvel 2. I don't know, just nothing I really wanted to as a freshman in college to try to grind out. I didn't really know the scene as a whole then. But when came out,
how did you transition from being a player to a tournament organizer? How did
no, that makes sense. So I started playing, actually took the step to actually wanting to play seriously and compete in Street Fighter 4 with actually the arcade release, because University Pinball was one of the lucky spots that actually had a cab, although it was real weird and jank. They had it on CRT displays with full American hat parts and everything.
Oh, yeah,
the 360 sticks. It was real weird.
But they had the real board.
They had the real board. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, actually, the first U.S. tournament was run at I think it was NEC or something like that, when it was at a super, super old venue off of the single board that University Pinball had.
Sheesh. That's insane.
But it was, I kind of took to it from there. Console release came out, and then some of the guys that I had been playing with, and I was getting my ass beat constantly. Was very far behind the curve, just really being super new to all of this.
Yeah.
Some of the guys would invite me over to sessions nearby, and one of them, he went by a whole bunch of different names. At the time, Philly won, and you've probably seen him also as Drake Fang or Evil Drake Fang, who actually he was from Korea. He was an international student, moved back to Korea, and started like doing a lot of locals there when that was active towards the end of Street Fighter 4.
Mm-hmm.
But he started with weekly tournaments. I would go over, we'd play all the time. I'd go to sessions, and then for a whole bunch of reasons, started working a little bit more. School was getting harder for him, and he was just like, "Okay, I can't do this anymore. No more tournaments at my apartment." I'm like,
"Wow,
shit." Well, and what and I think that the thought process then wasn't even like, "Okay, yeah, I'll just do it because we need this." It was, well, I still want people that are better than me to play with me, so I'm just gonna do this and host this out of my own apartment.
Oh wow! So
then they have no choice but to play with me.
This started in your apartment in Philly.
Yeah.
Holy,
yeah. So
wow.
I was fitting. I mean, I had 2 roommates that didn't even play any fighting games, and then I would invite, like, it started, just like 12, 13 people, and then at one point there was a day that I think I got like 55 people in an apartment. Yeah. Which that was the point where we had to figure out what else to do. But dude, it really just stemmed from just like, I'm like, I want to just play better people, and the only way. I mean, at the time, it felt like the only way for me to do that, since online kind of sucked and everyone just kind of like played amongst themselves with other players they knew were good. I'm like, I have to get them over here, because if I don't, they're never going to want to play me regularly.
Damn.
And it wasn't much. It was like I was charging like Oh,
you're making money off of this too?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I was literally, I would charge like $2 or $3 for like venue fee, that's it, and just like use that money to literally buy like drinks and snacks.
Yeah,
like I saw nothing from it other than the fact that I just wanted, like, hey, you're here, this is my place, can I get some, like, let's sit down and play a set.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. And I'm assuming, I don't really know this, I mean, I don't think we've discussed this, but I'm assuming you've gotten to the point, that you were helping out Big E, right?
Yeah, actually, he came over to one of the events, and I knew who he was, but I didn't really know him.
Mm-hmm.
When I got the call, and I was just like, who is this? Who's here? Went downstairs, and the first thing he did is he just came right upstairs, plopped down on the couch, and cracked a bottle of Hennessy. I was like, oh my god.
Oh, that's Big E for you.
Soon to be a good metaphor for our relationship.
That's funny. Yeah.
No, he was looking to start monthlies again, and I don't think he necessarily, like, he'd always done like smaller tournaments out of university pinball for like years and years and years when it was like pure arcade days. But he started bringing back monthlies, and I was like, dude, I'll deal them for you, like, not a problem. So we'll just go around helping him with all of his monthlies, and then eventually
majors, right?
All of his majors, yeah. And I think I had gone to 1 or 2 of them prior to me, at least one of them prior to me, really helping out there. And it went just from me just like doing basic brackets for, Pools, 1 or 2 games to just TOing, kind of event directing, so to speak, or like competition director, more or less. So just anything that were related to brackets and just general competitive aspects and logistics of the event is handle. And that was up until a certain point. I graduated college, got a job, tried to do that for a little bit. It was just way too hard.
Sure.
Being back like in northern New Jersey, trying to go back for every event that he had, because he's got quite a bit of events and make time for all that. But I mean, like, I went to school for like, my bachelor's is like in marketing communications.
Yep.
So at first it was, not just, it was like, okay, well, I shouldn't just be a TO anymore.
Right. You have a career to worry about.
Well, it's not even just that. It's like, it shouldn't, like, there's other people that can do what I do from like a competitive planning and like a competition directing like level. Like, there's more than one people more capable than I am from just planning brackets, seating, everything.
Sure.
And I try to see how I can kind of apply whatever limited marketing knowledge I had, which school does not prepare for you very well for, might I add.
Yeah.
To looking at how to look at events from just like a proper branding and business development standpoint.
Gotcha.
Which, still I even couldn't handle with kind of my workload, especially starting and not really knowing how to properly manage my time accordingly. But I guess from there, it was more or less, a few years down the line, we're like, you know what, I think I understand how to manage my time okay. Like, I can create this balance, even if it means giving up like a ton of my free time and not being able to play like mini games anymore. Like that's okay. Like I'd rather be a contributing factor and kind of flex some just like general creative and like business muscles, so to speak.
Yep.
Which is when one of the bullet points you had on there was Reversal, which was like a small LLC, just me and a couple other people founded. Like if you guys know,
shout out to Walter.
You know Walter.
Yep. Shout out to Walter.
Willie P on Twitter. Used to go by Bacardi. Him and a couple other guys that we just figured we're like, okay, like we've seen all sides of this and think we can help people out. So we formed that LLC and just kind of hit the road with all of the TOs we knew, since we were pretty well networked. And just seeing it's like, okay, like let's try to help you in a business development capacity and we'll kind of be out there on the road for brands and see how we can bring them to you, which honestly wasn't that successful at the time. I just don't think we fully knew how to go about that the right way. But eventually that turned into, when originally we tried to do that for John and Joe over at ECT, which was kind of one of our first contacts as far as working for or helping provide our services with. In which case it got to a point where, for whatever reasons, it just got too much for them to keep scaling ECT and growing it, and I think they were getting a little worn down by it, and it is tireless and thankless work.
Yeah, because a lot of people think ECT is still run by, like, operations-wise, they definitely are, like, still like the face of the tournament in a lot of ways, like the spiritual, face of the tournament, right? So, Sweet Johnny Cage and Long Island Joe, I'm talking about. And first of all, shout out to Li Joe. Hopefully you feel better, brother. We know you're gonna get better soon, but yeah, just want to shout out Li Joe. But yeah, so how did you guys?
He's got the craziest immune system in the world.
Yeah,
he's
I know,
gonna pound some cookie dough and shit'll be gone.
But yeah, how did you guys end up being partners? Like really, and like. So you were talking about it just now, but like they couldn't handle it, you were saying, and then you guys you were just kind of like on the cusp of getting going. So maybe it was like perfect timing type thing, or
I wouldn't say it wasn't them not being able to handle it. It was more so them just being like, well, we've got a lot of other priorities going on. John was moving around. John was
right.
Like, I think at the time moved to like South Carolina for some other opportunities.
He's back now, but he was down there for a while.
Yeah. It was just, I think realistically, like with all the changes in their life, too much to handle, to really keep it going full force. And I think they were at the decision. It's like, okay, well, I mean, if we can't put everything into it, like we probably shouldn't do it. But luckily we were kind of like with them the whole way. And we're just like, well, how about you guys don't do that?
Yep.
We come in and kind of work on this thing, like from both a branding, operations, and like a business development side, and like you built this thing, so stay along for the ride, like, and keep representing what this is, and obviously we'll keep talking with you and make sure that this is still with the vision and it doesn't ever really compromise what ECT was initially supposed to be.
I mean,
or never take a step that goes counter to their beliefs.
Like I've seen, I've been going to ECT for at least 5 or 6 years now, and every one has been like leaps and bounds better than the previous one, and it's incredible. So that you guys got it to the point where it's like an NRS major, not even a major, it's like a premier event, and then you also got the CPT premier event stamp for this year, right? Like,
fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, hopefully, fingers crossed on that one. Yep. I mean, can you I guess I think what a lot of people want to know is like, what the hell does it take to produce like an event like that? I can just think of things off the top of my head, like logistics, staffing, like running brackets, who's running the stream, what technology setup, safety, the production setup, sponsors, merch. Like, dude, there's like so much stuff that is just like, how can one person or like one team even manage all that? And like, how does that even come together for one weekend? And
good freelancers.
Yeah. And look, you came from humble beginnings, as you just discussed. So it's now like, yeah, like how does this all come together? Like, I still don't know. I show up every year, us, we have our table, we kind of just do our thing. And like, I just sit in awe about like how this whole thing is going down. So, I'm sure the chat wants to know too.
No, I don't think there's enough breath right now to go fully into what that process entails, but I think just like a good general principle for us is like we weren't just like when we initially started partnering up and we decided we're like, okay, we should give what this brand is a facelift and kind of hold that to just like a general like approach that we want East Coast Throwdown to be. And at that point, we all had kind of a common space, or a lot of us had a common space between obviously fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
That is always at the core, but also try to distinguish ourselves and kind of express ourselves on a personal level with the thematics of metal music, since that was like a big crossover point, especially between me and Joe.
Right.
To which we were like, okay, well, like there's a lot of great things from an aesthetic perspective that work over, and just from like an attitude perspective as well. It's like maybe not metal per se, but almost like punk music is, it's grassroots as hell between fighting games and kind of that genre and style of music where it's very like DIY, and there's a whole ethic behind that goes into it. So it's like, it's pretty much a by the people for the people effort.
But like operations wise, I mean, you were saying that a lot of the teams that come in, like they'll just talk about something very like as far just say like setups, right? Just setups for all the tournaments. Like, how do you guys manage that? Is it a freelance type thing? Do you hire out? Like, how does that look?
Some things. There's a couple of ways. So it's like obviously anything from an AV perspective is there's no one really endemic to our space for the most part that specializes that, at least in the Northeast. So yes, it's like we've had to be our like boots on the ground and just really like through other projects that we've had in our own personal ventures or like, full-time work ventures, like find people that we feel like work for our budget level and understand what we do.
Okay.
Work with them and understand like our vision for kind of like the overall look and feel of how we want to present ourselves.
Yeah.
But I mean, it goes even farther back, I guess, if we want to kind of process this of what this like procedure is for an event. It's like, we're starting and creating like every year, it's from the top to bottom. It's okay, making sure that either we're finding a proper venue or our current venue still works, revisit the proper terms. I'm sure everyone can certainly like, it's a very arduous process just to get to that point, because it's okay, well, how many hotel rooms do we feel comfortable committing to that our guests and attendees will reserve? Like, the more we can commit to, the better of a deal we get. And it's always that game of what they call, in that space, attrition, where if, we don't hit 90% of those reservations, like we get billed for it. So it's always like a rough guessing game, and being able to secure that. And then on top of that, like you have crazy other terms when it comes to, venue negotiations, when it comes to, power's not always included, right? Base internet's not always included. And what we need is...
Wait, you said power is not included?
Well, enhanced power, so it's if you're talking beyond just 20 amp
gotcha.
circuits from the wall, and you need to bring in giant circuit breaker boxes,
right, for like the arcade room that you guys had a couple of years, right?
Oh, and all the rooms too, like every room has whether they're hidden or and those like per one, you're paying for boxes to be rented from the AV group, from you're usually paying, because it's a venue, more often than not, some kind of union labor associated with them just setting it up, all the way down to internet, which you can imagine that we are far more demanding from an internet bandwidth perspective than almost every other kind of event a lot of these hotel venues see.
Right. Like you need that good internet all the time.
Yeah, like I think we looked at like one time and doing something at the Meadowlands Convention Center to see if that was viable, and I think like what they wanted for their connection was something out of control. I think it was like, no joke, a 10 up 10 down connection. They wanted $30,000 for it, like for a single hard line. So that's kind of like the barriers to entry that you have to like really search. It's not just finding a place with enough space. It's finding a space where everything lines up, or at least the concessions aren't painful enough to
I mean, like
to deal with.
As simple as the stream dying because of lack of proper internet is like very detrimental to the brand. It's
of course, I mean, and all the other factors that go along with it, from your brand partners that kind of.
But as simple as that,
it
could wreck everything, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, man. And even past the venue, it's like once you even get that, is working within the confounds that they have. From you can't just put everything anywhere you want it. Like there's all kinds of fire code rules around where you can and can't put things in certain pathways.
So guys, just seeing Zack in his element, he is running around like I think he puts in like 90,000 steps, like just all day.
I keep meaning to track that every year, and I
like he's the first guy up and the last guy to go to sleep. It seems like every single time I see him at an event, it's like amazing. So. Yeah, just props to you, man. We're even just getting a glimpse of what you go through, and it's just like it's intense. I can already tell.
Yeah. I mean, just continuing down the list, it's you're making your plans, then your floor plans,
right.
Working with your AV partners to make sure how to bring your vision of life. From a hardware side, it's we don't own all of that hardware. It's
sure.
We're working with partners in the space, everyone from Big E to gaming generations, to figure out, what's the appropriate infrastructure we need for consoles, for monitors, and then probably the most critical thing that a lot of people overlook, and one of the biggest problems you find in a lot of events, is just getting good staffing from just being able to manage the
brackets,
competitive logistics of that scale, because it's not just the guy. It's like, okay, here's how you run a double elimination bracket. Just these are the terms. Go through it. Like, there's more layers to it. It's we're making sure that every game has like a designated lead point, that all of our stages have an appropriate cycle of stage managers coordinating with the on-floor like bracket staff, as well as the streamer, like the stream director in the back for every single stream, and making sure that's coordinated, and then someone on top of that level who's overseeing the ebb and flow on the scheduling of everything happening, and making sure we don't need to make it like accommodations to get things back on track or fix anything. And that's not something you can just put out there and hire for. Like, that's a very niche skill set out there for people at that level. And the only way to do that, and you'll see us, especially more so nowadays than not, with kind of a lot of the New York City and New York City Metro tournament organizers, from like Team Stick Bug to on the anime group, NYC Tekken, Mortal Kombat New Jersey, all those guys, like, they're more often than not associated with us because we use completely uncompensated, just to be able to spend time with these guys and help them with their events and build their events and how to scale and grow their events. Because if we can teach them and equip them with like the right tools of what to do and how to do it, they also become a more valuable like resource and asset to us. So when it comes to ECT time, we know that they can take on a certain workload of a higher level, and
that's incredible.
We can kind of look the other way and just feel confident that we can stay focused on sort of the higher level items that we need to take care of. So it's a lot of, it doesn't stop. Like, once you decide to run an event, you are always running and planning an event, consciously or not.
Got it. Wow, man, that's deep, man. Hey guys, also, if you want to queue up some questions, like you can get them ready to go, feel free to do that. So I wanted to touch on your role in supporting Mortal Kombat. I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think the pivotal moment this year was when COVID hit, right? And then Final Combat was affected big time. And dude, when I saw that tweet that you posted, dude, I was just like, oh, like, I felt it like punch me in the chest, dude. So So I mean, what kind of? I'm sure everyone in the chat wants to know, like, how is and it's a small community. Like, how is the premier tournament organizers feeling right now? What's the sentiment? I'm sure you guys talk all the time. Like, I'm sure you speak to Rick all the time from Combo Breaker. Just hearing that it got canceled today, like, what's the sentiment? What's the impact that is immediate? Like, what's the immediate impact right now? And like, what do you think is going to be the impact for the future?
I mean, the bottom line is right now there's clearly, and it's all a matter of circumstances, there is events and organizers that have the means and, of course, community backing and support to kind of look to move past any losses or recoup losses this year that have been affected from cancellations or postponements, whatever it might be, and try again next year and rebuild. But we're also understanding that there's definitely going to be a lot of events that won't make it. I mean, a good example is, I know you put it on a slide earlier, but like Michigan Masters, like their crew were basically were like, this is kind of the nail in the coffin for us. Like, we're done. We're not coming back.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
And that's the thing that people have to realize is like, and I think everyone kind of starts to realize it now, because there's been enough tournament organizers that have been affected that have kind of explained the situation where it's, you're dealing with deposits and just contract terms that you're in a lot of cases still on the hook for, at least in a certain percentage.
Like for venues and such.
Yeah, and like on one hand, of course, it's like you or the natural reactions to get upset and angry with kind of the venue owners and management for kind of holding us to this, and potentially in some cases maybe even like possibly bankrupting people, but. Same time, as big as a Marriott or a Hilton group is, and well, unethical it sounds, it's like, hey, well, if they let all of this go, they're also as a venue pretty much bankrupt and not going to exist. Either. Right. So it's just a bad situation for a lot of people, and like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of events and that are going to persevere, and unfortunately not going to have the same level of success as they do previously. In which case, I'm sure a lot of people are taking the proper steps. I mean, one of the first big ones was Jubele was CEO of Dreamland. In which case super prideful dude, and first time I've ever seen him ask for donations or contributions from the community. And people actually came through and put up for it, and he was able to not go totally broke. And as you saw from the Combo Breaker announcement today, being a little bit resourceful and looking for support with kind of some ancillary items, some merch, some commemorative gifts, being able to just support that way at the very least for what your venue fee would have equated to had you gone. And I don't think this is an expectation us as tournament organizers have for anybody. We understand that there are people that if they weren't coming, really do need to use that money for other purposes, because this doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody. There's people that are losing jobs left and right. We get it. It's just, I think it's, if you have the means to help support and you do care, please do.
I hear you. Man, that's just tough to hear. Oh, we got a question in the chat. So Mighty JR Gaming wants to know, how will this affect online events and attendance to future in person? Basically, how is it going to affect the future attendance?
I mean, I think out of necessity, you're going to see at least a larger frequency in online events. I don't know so much about participation, because if I'm being completely honest, outside of MK, Killer Instinct and Skullgirls, I don't think there's any game that you can not play, fighting game that you could play online without a really frustrating experience.
Okay. I beg to differ, but
Street Fighter V. Oh man, you play one hardline connection.
Right.
Okay, good. But I don't think the growth and the kind of the necessity to run online events is going to affect events offline. And I hate this is one of the things I hate to say it, but if fingers crossed and we get through this pandemic and it's no longer or a more contained global issue come fall, and somehow ECT is one of the first events back in the game.
Yeah,
more or less.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have people scheduling for September, but you guys are at basically closer to. Actually, you're at the first week of October, right?
Yeah, there'll probably be some events before us and stuff, like Texas Throwdown and things like that. But if this thing wipes out the rest of the summer events, and for whatever reason, if whoever is kind of that first major back on the docket that's in the clear, you're probably going to see a huge attendance spike.
You think a spike?
Oh yeah,
you're saying spike. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
The sentiment for sure. Feel like people just really want to go back out and play fighting games with people again.
Sure. I mean, that's just go out in general, but something that they're passionate about. Probably you're saying that they're gonna jump at the first opportunity, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely by the time we get, especially if this does go through a good chunk of the summer, you got to be imagining people are going to be so tired of an online experience that they want nothing more than just to get back out there and be playing side by side with people.
Wow.
So it's there will be some weird kind of coattail effect to this, so to speak,
right
at the end of it. All assumption, but it just feels like that's just the general community sentiment, and kind of every tournament organizer is looking at it almost same way.
Yeah, I mean, we were thinking about, and we have a joke on my stream. It's how the FGC has the worst hygiene ever, right? Especially at local events and stuff. But
oh yeah,
I mean, what's that look like from you guys? I'll give you an example. I remember a couple ECTs ago, you guys stepped up security big time. Immediate, like something happened within the summer. Yeah, you guys know all the stuff that's been happening with shootings and such like that. And then all of a sudden, it got really stressed that, hey, like big events such as, any group setting, any big events, needs to have the proper security measures. So like fast forward to today, much different type of threat, but like, what do you guys think is going to happen as far as keeping everyone healthy and safe at your events?
I mean, it's one of those things where there's really the two immediates that come to mind, and this is yet to be seen if it's even reasonable or realistic for us to even do, mostly from like a financial perspective, is, look to set up as many, not like pump bottles, but like actual like
like the sanitation
automatic
stations.
sanitation stations, as well as, potentially even looking to rope stanchion off the actual tournament stations as well, so you can actually create some force level of distance between spectators and actual in-match competitors.
I see.
Which, I mean, honestly, depending on who you ask, I'm sure people would like that regardless of a hygiene issue. But I think the part of that too is there's very hefty, and as much as it might seem like it's nothing until you've gotten yourself into it, there's some very hefty associated expenses and costs with that.
Oh yeah.
So it's one of the biggest things to potentially look out for is the inevitable consequences that our venue fees have to go up to compensate. You can see all the theory crafting in the world. Oh, you reach out to Johnsons and Johnsons of the world, the Procter and Gambles. I'm sure Purell makes the most sense to sponsor. It's like they don't. It's already a pandemic. People need it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need the extra partnership efforts or marketing initiatives.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those guys are doing all right now.
Oh yeah, no one's going to help us, and unfortunately, when we need help like that, and that's why you also see when it comes to East Coast Throwdown, our venue prices, we're not shy about it. They do increase,
sure,
over and over.
Right. But I would argue that the production value and the experience is also elevated, I would say, to the point where it's actually you're getting more value. That's just my personal experience as an attendee. I really feel like every single year, yeah, sure, the venue fees go up and such, but it's I never walk out of ECT saying oh my god, that was a ripoff. Never ever. It's far from that. It's actually the most far from that. So yeah, I think people are willing to pay for quality, and I don't think that and honestly, I'd pay for, if knowing that you guys have this in mind, keeping everybody safe, I'd pay for that too. Absolutely, I think that goes without saying, and that's just me personally, but yeah,
for sure, yeah. It's definitely it's not like we're ignorant or not thinking actively of solutions for any of the problems or challenges that our community faces. It's just it's not something that we as event organizers, not even just us as East Coast Throwdown, can spearhead single-handedly, and it does kind of rub off and trickle down, so to speak, and look for support from everybody else in the community as well. Sure. And we'll keep doing our best to make sure that that's returned in some way, shape, or form.
Got it.
So,
all right, here we got a question in the chat. So, assuming a greater number of studios like Capcom and Bandai Namco improve their online netcode, like they're doing with Guilty Gear, plus this current quarantine situation, do you expect some of those minor tournaments or even the bigger ones becoming online?
No.
Okay.
I don't think they'll ever become online.
Yeah.
I think you'll potentially have existing organizers like ourselves creating additional online events. But there's such an important cultural element of what we do as far as having live events that you can't replicate in an online environment. And that's honestly, when you're coming to an event, you're not coming and paying your venue fee and your tournament register and your venue tournament entry fees to purely just compete in your matches, go home, right?
No, you're paying for you're paying for the the experience of being there.
Exactly.
Right.
You're paying for a full cultural experience, being surrounded by like-minded people, meeting new people for the first time, making new friends.
Sure.
All the other things that we put out, putting awesome people like, John in front of you for, various community-based products and and amazing vendors of it's not just there's more to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think actually Rick, had talked in one of his interviews about Combo Breaker and how he developed it the way he did, and he kind of took the approach of a larger scale music festival and trying to recreate that experience.
Sure.
That's we might kind of be a little bit more niche in that regard, but like we're not far off from how we think about building our event. Like it's an experience. And if you've ever been to a music festival or a live sports game, like it's not the same as watching a music video or a live set from home, or watching get like a NBA game or something, or an NFL game from home. Like it's not the same.
Gotcha. All right. And guys in the chat, if you guys want to ask a question, feel free to put it in the chat. So if someone out there, some young whippersnapper is out there, thinking that they can be a tournament organizer in any capacity, just say in esports, right? Let's not limit it to the FGC. What's like the one, piece of advice, or just what's like the gospel to go by, to follow, to do this successfully, like just coming from your experience and maybe your colleagues, like what's the wisdom that everyone needs to know?
I mean, there's multiple bullet points to this, but I'd say like my biggest kind of caveat to all of it is don't do this to make money. You might eventually get there. But it's quite frankly, like your motivations and your intentions have to be in the right place from the get-go. Like if you don't actually care about whatever the community is that you're serving through these events, it's going to reflect very heavily in your product and the way that you approach event organizing, for sure. You look at all the great events that are out here, especially in the fighting game space, and even beyond. You look into some of the other industries, especially, like you can tell with like a lot of the StarCraft 2 events that are still going out there. Just how much of the passion that the people that create those events really like manifest in themselves, like make them feel special. The other thing too that kind of piggybacks on top of that is you don't do this to become an influencer, more or less. I think a lot of people, like, they'll use, like, I can use Alex as a good example. So like Jabali, right? Like he's 100% like one of if not the most notorious like fighting game event organizer, and him himself has become a huge presence and an influencer like within the space.
Yeah.
But that's
I mean, he has an emote.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. Got debated. But like I often see a lot of like up and coming TOs put themselves out in front of their product constantly, and by product I really mean event. But it's you're doing, like, this is a selfless act. Like, this is not about you. This is about your community, and in due time, trust me, like, people will respect you for what you do. But if you make it about yourself, it's not going to go well.
Huh? That's amazing advice, man. So you guys heard it, man. You guys got to stay true to the community and the love for the community, and then, right, it's about you. Yeah. I mean, like, I'll just give you an example. Not a lot of people, I would say, like, point you out, Zach, and say like, oh, it's Zach from X, Y, and Z. Like, people who know you, and they know what you do and such. But like, yeah, you're not on the front lines, like toting. You're definitely not a Jabali, I guess, right?
No, I mean, it's not. It's also not in my personality to do so, I guess. But it's. I guess if you are your work in a lot of ways. Sure. So realistically, it's the people that need to know who I am, and that's all that really matters. Things forward. So whether it's the relationships that we have with the developers and the publishers in the space, or a lot of the brands and partners that we work with, and a lot of the community leaders that help work with us to make ECT great. Like, as long as they have a respect for what I do and they know who I am and can continue, that's enough for them to continue working with us to help build this bigger and better. That's ultimately all that's needed at the end of the day. Like, if in a couple of years from now, like, if nobody's associated with ECT and it's just a great thing, single entity to pin behind it, like, great, like, I've done my job.
Nice. You have any shout outs? You have any anything you want to plug? Any future events, even outside of ECT? You know, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff hopefully coming up. That I mean, if you just follow my Twitter, if they finally actually get off the ground, like I hope they will, it would be great for you guys to just check them out, even if it's not purely FGC related or otherwise. You know, I like to think that we're taking on some interesting projects all across the space, from fighting games to music, and always trying to do something different. Especially right now, it's so much that we can't do, and we just have to focus on what we can and to be innovative and creative. And of course, anyone that's come up through any of these stories and anecdotes, are all people that have played a huge part of any success and projects and momentum I've had in this space and in this community. So anyone that I brought up is, huge shout outs to all of you, and of course, anyone from just this is a global thing. I still have tons of regional love for kind of everyone from in the Northeast that has really made something special across the board. Anywhere from Vic and Team Spooky down to the guys up in Bunch and Lucky D up in Boston,
right?
And
shout out to Lucky D. Yeah,
Cha-Cha, Brian up in Buffalo. Just anyone that's on any size and scale has really stepped up to really provide a platform for their local community. Is their contributions matter, how as small as they might seem, are just as equivalent and important as the big guys that you have known and come to love. So cool. Treat your local TOs with respect, your community leaders with respect, and kind of believe in what they do and help them out where you can. It's the best we can all do, especially to get everything back on track once this is all over.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, I really hope that ECT goes down safely. I just I'm itching, man. Like I just want to go to a local. I want to get out there and just have fun again with the boys. I don't know what else to say. I just want to go hang with the boys.
We're planning for all intents and purposes that we'll still be able to have ECT, but we're not going to do anything that puts anyone in jeopardy. So
of course,
if this thing, take it cautiously and not dive too deep in, and if it looks like there's a clearing point, we'll move full steam ahead. But we'll make sure that we don't do anything reckless or put anyone else at harm. That's for sure.
Awesome. Oh, shout out to Asta for the host. Appreciate that. All right, guys. So any last questions, let us know in the chat. But this has been an awesome talk with my man Kattermari, aka Zack, aka Kattermari.
There you go. Way better.
Yeah. Just really cool, man. I don't think a lot of people get this insight, talking to an organizer like yourself of now your caliber, like it's just awesome seeing how much, the brand and, what you're able to do to transform the brand to, such like almost epic levels, man. Like that tournament last year everyone still talks about it. Like my circle of friends that went, they just absolutely loved it, and even people that I was at the event that were there and have traveled everywhere, like they said, I'm coming back next year. Like I've heard that. That's just like the phrase that was just coming out of a lot of people's mouths. So hopefully we can make it happen. Thanks, man. I do appreciate your time tonight. And
of course, man. Anytime.
Another thing too is I also want to thank you personally. You always support myself and E since like day one. It's just been like, honestly, I think the growth of ECT has also helped us as well, like personally, and to the point where I can actually sort of make a kind of living out of the FGC. It's kind of cool. Like I can start to say that that's like almost happening.
It's not just about bringing yourself up. Like if you are creating like a vehicle that it drives everyone forward, Yeah, just
exactly.
Like I said, don't make it about you. Don't be about everyone else that's along for the ride with you.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna leave it up that. Have a good night, man. Thank you again, and we'll talk offline, brother.
All right, man.
All right, man. Peace.
Take care.
Yep. Later.